Good Sunday morning, automotive enthusiasts. I'm Steve, alongside my brilliant co-host Claire, welcoming you to a special weekend edition of Auto Intelligence Podcast. If you're just pouring that morning coffee, you might want to make it an extra large today. We're diving into some heavy industry news that's already reshaping the entire automotive landscape.
That's right, Steve. We're part of the Auto Agentic team, and we're here every Tuesday, Thursday, and normally Saturday morning. But today, we're bringing you this special Sunday edition with the sharpest takes on the auto industry's most relevant topics. And boy, do we have a significant one today. The newly implemented 25% tariffs on automotive imports under Section 232 of the Trade Expansion Act. This is arguably the most significant trade policy shift for the automotive industry in decades.
No kidding, Claire. This protectionist measure, justified on national security grounds, aims to revitalize domestic manufacturing, but has triggered widespread disruptions across global supply chains, pricing structures, and international trade relationships. We're witnessing a seismic shift that's going to affect everyone, from manufacturers to consumers.
Let me put this in perspective for our listeners. These tariffs are creating a complex matrix of consequences: higher vehicle prices for consumers. Projections show a 13.5% increase, adding approximately $6,400 to average vehicle costs, fragmented North American manufacturing ecosystems, strained diplomatic relations, and potential retaliatory measures from trading partners.
And our neighbors are feeling it too. Mexico's 2.19 million U.S.-bound vehicle exports, which represent 14% of the U.S. market, and Canada's $7 billion auto parts trade surplus face particular disruption, despite USMCA preferential treatment providing some partial insulation.
What I find particularly concerning is that in the short term, industry analysts project significant production disruptions. S&P Global Mobility estimates a 50% probability of an extended 16 to 20-week disruption, affecting 45% of US vehicle sales. That's nearly half the market, Steve.
The situation is particularly problematic because automotive supply chains have parts crossing borders an average of 8 times before final assembly. This creates what industry insiders call tariff stacking effects, where cumulative levies could exceed the component values themselves.
This isn't just a North American story either. The global impact extends beyond our continent, with European suppliers facing double exposure through $8.7 billion in annual US parts exports plus retaliatory measures.
And Asian manufacturers, particularly Chinese companies already subject to existing tariffs, now confront cumulative duties approaching 60%, likely redirecting billions in trade flows toward emerging markets.
While the stated aim is reshoring manufacturing, the economic reality tells a different story. Economic models from Yale University's Budget Lab suggest the tariffs may generate $16 billion in annual GDP losses, regardless of whether trading partners retaliate.
That's a crucial point, Claire. With automakers' profit margins of 6 to 7% facing collapse under tariff costs, and U.S. content in domestically assembled vehicles averaging just 40 to 50%, the automotive sector enters an unprecedented period of protectionist recalibration. Quick reminder that today's episode is brought to you by Auto Agentic, the AI-driven platform revolutionizing how dealerships manage inventory forecasting and pricing strategies. In times of tariff uncertainty, their predictive analytics help dealers make smarter purchasing decisions to protect margins. Visit autoagentic.ai to learn how they're helping dealerships navigate these challenging market conditions. Now, let's look at the structure itself.
The automotive tariff package represents a multifaceted trade policy with staggered implementation dates and complex compliance requirements. The cornerstone is a 25% duty on imported vehicles effective immediately, with parallel 25% tariffs on auto parts beginning May 3rd, 2025. This bifurcated timeline gives automakers a brief window to adjust supply chains for components while immediately impacting finished vehicle imports.
What makes this particularly complex is that these tariffs supplement existing duties, creating cumulative effects that vary by country of origin. Chinese automotive exports now face a staggering 59% tariff rate. That's the existing 25% plus the new 34%, effectively closing the U.S. market to Chinese manufacturers. Even Taiwan-sourced semiconductors, critical for modern vehicle electronics, face 32% tariffs, threatening supply chains for advanced driver assistance systems and infotainment components.
There are some exceptions though, right, Steve?
Yes, vehicles and parts meeting USMCA's regional content requirements face reduced 12.5% tariffs, but those falling short of the 50% US content threshold incur the full 25% duty starting May 3rd. This content verification creates significant compliance challenges, with BMW and Mercedes-Benz particularly vulnerable due to their reliance on European-sourced transmissions and engines.
The industry faces a lot of uncertainty. As one industry analyst noted, the exemptions for USMCA-compliant products from Mexico and Canada are temporary measures, creating a climate of strategic uncertainty for long-term planning. This temporary nature of exemptions forces manufacturers into difficult decisions about permanent supply chain restructuring versus waiting for potential policy shifts.
Speaking of North America specifically, the North American automotive ecosystem, built on 3 decades of cross-border integration, faces immediate operational challenges. High-exposure vehicles like the Toyota RAV4 and Honda CR-V face production slowdowns or stoppages due to supply chain gridlock. S&P Global Mobility estimates potential daily production losses of 20,000 units in North America.
That's massive, Steve. Border bottlenecks at Mexico and US crossings risk short-term production halts even for compliant shipments as customs processing adapts to verification requirements. The logistical disruption is intensified by the fact that parts typically cross borders an average of 8 times before final assembly, creating multiplicative effects across supply tiers.
But what our listeners really care about is how this affects their wallets, right, Claire?
Absolutely, Steve. The economic consequences for North American consumers are substantial. Average new vehicle prices are projected to rise 13.5%. That's $6,400 on a $48,000 average vehicle, with imported models seeing up to 31% increases. Entry-level vehicles under $30,000 face 25% average price hikes, adding about $5,300, disproportionately affecting budget-conscious consumers.
It's a market-changing event. Cox Automotive predicts U.S. auto sales could stabilize at 14.5 to 15 million units annually versus 16 million in 2024, with lower-income buyers disproportionately exiting the market. This market contraction represents a potential long-term structural shift, with Yale's Budget Lab models showing 0.3 to 0.4% aggregate price inflation, translating to $500 to $600 per household annual cost. Before we wrap up, let's explore how automakers and suppliers are implementing multifaceted strategies to navigate this new tariff environment.
Companies are conserving stockpiles and reducing discounts to protect margins while extending vehicle delivery timelines. Ford, with 80% US-made vehicles, is better positioned than competitors like BMW and Volkswagen with higher import dependencies.
Supply chain redesign efforts are accelerating, with companies like Hyundai investing $6 billion in US steel production, while digital platforms like Ventura's advocate data-sharing networks to navigate compliance complexities. However, these adaptations face timeline constraints. Industry experts estimate 5 to 10 years will be required to rebuild domestic parts networks.
The European automotive sector faces significant exposure too. Slovakia, Hungary, and Germany face severe economic contractions due to their automotive manufacturing dependencies. Klepper, representing European auto suppliers, warns that EU's 8.7 billion euros US parts trade supports 35,000 North American jobs, which are now imperiled.
Meanwhile, Asian manufacturers face varied impacts depending on existing US market integration. Chinese automotive exports, already facing substantial tariffs, now confront nearly 60% cumulative duties, effectively closing direct access to the US market. This will likely redirect $6.5 billion in US-bound exports to alternative markets, intensifying competition in emerging economies.
Another crucial aspect to watch is how these tariffs impact the electrification transition. Battery prices could jump 125% due to a 920% tariff on Chinese graphite, while aluminum tariffs add costs for lightweight EV components. These input cost increases arrive as regulatory pressure for electrification simultaneously eases under relaxed emission standards.
S&P Global has revised U.S. battery electric vehicle market share projections downward from 40% to 30% by 2030 due to this combination of cost pressures and regulatory shifts. This recalibration represents a significant departure from previous electrification trajectories and may delay environmental benefits associated with transportation electrification.
As we wrap up today's episode, it's clear that the automotive tariff regime represents a fundamental restructuring of the industry's economic foundations rather than a temporary policy adjustment. As one industry executive noted, this isn't just another obstacle to navigate, it's a complete redrawing of the competitive map.
For consumers, the immediate reality is higher prices, reduced selection, and potentially longer waiting periods for vehicles. Fleet operators face $120 a month payment increases, while suppliers navigate a 22% rise in cross-border compliance costs under new rules.
The global automotive industry must now balance competing imperatives, maintaining affordability, ensuring supply chain resilience, meeting sustainability targets, and navigating geopolitical complexities. Whether the tariffs ultimately achieve their stated goals of revitalizing domestic manufacturing remains uncertain, but their transformative impact on the automotive ecosystem is already underway.
That brings us to the end of another information-packed episode of Auto Intelligence, hopefully enhancing your Sunday morning coffee ritual. As the industry adapts to this new normal, we'll continue to bring you the latest developments and insights.
Today's special Sunday edition of Auto Intelligence podcast was produced by the human and AI teams at AutoAgentic. AutoAgentic is a pioneering AI-driven platform transforming the automotive retail industry, founded in 2024 to deliver intelligent, adaptive solutions, helping dealerships streamline operations, optimize sales performance, and elevate the customer experience.
With a focus on ethical AI, seamless integrations, and real-time data insights, AutoAgentic empowers dealership teams, not replaces them, unlocking new levels of productivity and profitability. You can learn more about this agentic AI company at www.autoagentic.ai.
Whether you're just starting your Sunday or catching this episode later, we're honored to be part of your automotive information journey. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe to never miss an episode. We'll be back Tuesday morning with more sharp takes on the auto industry.